Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be showcasing the PiKVM. Now, I know there's a lot of videos out there showing the PiKVM running on a local network. What I want to do is show you how you can access it from anywhere in the world using a traditional KVM connected up to 16 devices. Now, if you're not familiar with the PiKVM, it's a small and affordable device that's used to access multiple computers remotely. It runs on Linux and it's a completely open source project. They have a Discord community that's active with mods to answer questions, and they have full documentation with examples. Along the way, I'm going to show you what parts you're going to need, how to put the device together, and how to flash it. Additionally, we're going to be getting into the terminal so that we can modify the file system, install the VPN software, and much more. Of course, we'll do a quick demo actually showing how to do it, so let's get started. Okay, so I went ahead and broke this down for you guys so you could see the least amount of components needed to get the basic setup running. So, starting from the right, we have your basic Type-C USB cable intended for data transfer. We have a Type-C power adapter as well. This is just intended to get power into the device. We have a splitter and a power switch, both optional components. The splitter is meant for you to get data and power going through a single port, and the power switch is just meant for ease of use so you could power the device on and on without having to disconnect any cables. We have a micro SD card, just meant to hold and store the operating system for the Pi, and then we use it to flash the device. We have a micro HDMI cable. This is only intended for the initial setup so you could get some video output from the terminal. Finally, we have a HDMI input component. This is for any device that you're going to be connecting to the PiKVM so that you could have video display of it as well. And then we have the actual Raspberry Pi board mounted on a small case that we got just for ventilation. Finally, we have your screwdriver and your screws to put it all together. All right, so for this next part, we're not actually going to need most of these cables here, so just going to move them to the side so that the camera can have a better look at what we're doing. So depending on the case that you get, this may look a little bit different for you, but for us, the input module here is kind of like the toughest component to get in there, so we're going to try to do that one first. So we want to make sure that we place it here correctly, and then we bring the case onto it, like so, trying to make sure that we get the HDMI correctly coming out of that slot there. All right, so take your screw, and we try to make sure that we can grab it from up top and just screw it in. Okay, doesn't have to look perfect, just make sure that you get the HDMI just coming out of that slot correctly. And once you have that, the next part should be pretty easy. Now we have this last two parts here. If you take a look, this is where the micro SD card actually slots in onto the PiKVM. You want to make sure that the slot stays free, of course. All right, and that was pretty much it. So you can see you have all your USB slots here available. You have your HDMI and your Ethernet. All right, so that's the PiKVM. Now we can go ahead and take it and connect it to the rest of our environment. Okay, so now that we have our Raspberry Pi built, we can take the SD card and flash the OS. Then it's just a matter of taking the SD card and inserting it into the right slot for the Pi. So we already have the SD card inserted into our reader here, which is hooked up to our laptop. So starting from Google, make sure to type PiKVM handbook into the URL and go to the official website. On the left menu, scroll down until you find Building PiKVM OS. Now, as a beginner, The best thing to do probably is to just download the image and install it, but there's multiple ways that we could do this. So we scroll down until we find the link for flashing the OS image. We click that. And then once we're here, you're going to want to identify which Raspberry Pi you have. For us, it's the DIY Raspberry Pi 4 version 2 platform with the CSI bridge. So I just click on that, download the image, and then I scroll down until I find RPI Imager, which is the program that's going to let us flash the OS onto the card. We click on that. It'll take us to the GitHub repo, and then we just choose the executable. We click it and we download it. And for the purpose of the video, we already have it installed, so I'm just going to fire it up. We bring that up. We go ahead and we choose an OS. Make sure to use custom so that we can take the image that we just downloaded. We pick that, we hit open, and then we just choose a storage for it. And then we just hit write. We click yes, and we just wait for the setup to finish, and that's it. Okay, guys, so now that we flashed the OS onto the SD card, we just have to plug it into the PiKVM. So, finding the correct slot for it, we insert the SD card like so. If you need some tweezers, use them so that you can plug it all the way in the back. All right, then we take our Ethernet cable. We plug that into the right slot as well. Our micro HDMI cable for the video output. And then our power cable for the power. Now, you are going to want to get into the terminal, so we're going to need a keyboard. That's why we're using a dongle. We plug that in as well. And then at this point, all you have to do is wait for the system to boot up, and you can get into the terminal. All right, guys, so now that we have the terminal booted up, all we have to do is get into the file system so that we can configure what we need to. We're going to do mouse emulation, and then we're going to do Tailscale VPN. So to get inside, you use root for both the username and the password. Once in here, you want to go into write mode so that the changes that you save onto the files stay saved in memory. So RW, and then you want to get into the file system throughout the tree of files. So starting with etc, we want to check out which files are inside this folder. For that, it's a simple command of ls. And then I know that we have to get into the KVMD folder. So once we're in here, we still want to see what files are inside this folder. So same command. And we know that we need to access the override.yaml and edit it. So for that, very simply, do a nano command. And then we do override.yaml. All right. Now, once we're here, you want to make sure that you follow the same formatting for the file. We go to the last line. All right. Once we're here, you want to save the file. So for that, it's Control S. And then you just want to exit. Now, you want to make sure that the file has actually been edited. So we're just going to go into it again. And then we can see that the entry is still showing up there. So we know that it's good to go. At this point, we can exit out of here. And now the next thing we're going to do is configure the Tailscale VPN. Remember, you need this so that you can access your devices from anywhere in the world, and you're not just basically logged in to your LAN network. So we're going to access the file where we can configure that. We are already in write mode, so we don't need to type the command again. But if you wanted to go into read mode, you just type RO, and you're back to read mode. You type RW, and you're back into write mode. So simple commands. Okay. So you can see now This command accesses the distribution and starts downloading the files that we need. We just keep on going yes. Every time we get a prompt. Same thing as before, we're going to go into write mode, RW, and then it's just a matter of following a couple of simple commands. Do pacman, hit yes, okay. All right, so all we need to do is take the URL and use it to log in and authenticate. All right, so now we have Tailscale installed and configured. All we need to do is take the URL that we got from the terminal and use it to log in and authenticate. So taking that same URL, we type it into the URL of the browser, and we're going to use it to authenticate into the VPN. So use that. We already have this. Sign in. Choose the account. Login successful. And there you go. So you can see our login was successful. On the terminal, you should see the success string as well. Now we have Tailscale installed and configured on the PiKVM side. Keep in mind, you're still going to need the client installation for any device that you're using to actually connect to the PiKVM. Opening up your browser, you want to type PiKVM handbook into the URL. Go to the official website. Now on the left-hand menu, go down to where it says Internet Access, then Tailscale VPN. All right, once we're here, we've already installed it on the PiKVM side. So we scroll down, we find the download link, and then we click that. Then once here, we download for Windows. And you just wait for the files to be downloaded onto your machine. All right, once that's completed, we go into the folder, and then what we want to do is run it as administrator. Click on yes. Then we go ahead and we accept the license agreement, and we click install. Should be just a few moments. Once the setup is completed, we hit close. Now at this point, we can go down to the system tray. We find the Tailscale icon, click on it, and then we can access the admin console. And there you go. Now we have Tailscale VPN as well as mouse emulation configured and installed. Next thing we want to do is give you a quick little tip just in case when you log into the web interface, if your mouse latency isn't quite as fast as you'd like it to be, we can improve the refresh rate with just a few commands. So what we want to do is check out where we are in the file system. Click LS, and we go into the boot folder. Once here, do LS again. Right. Then what we want to do, we want to go to the end of this line right here and add this command. Okay, so now that we've added this line, mouse polling is done. Keep in mind that the value that we used for the polling is a variable, and it'll change depending on the refresh rate that you actually want for your mouse. So be sure to read the documentation so that you can test out different refresh rates and pick the one that's best for you.
Okay, so now this next section may seem mundane, but you definitely want to pay attention or you're going to start banging your head against the wall. We're going to introduce the PiKVM into a traditional KVM environment so we can have both local control here at our desk as well as remote control with the PiKVM. So we have a couple different laptops and we have a desktop over here. You can see we have a monitor as well as the KVM and an HDMI splitter. Now the trick here is that you're going to want to train each of these devices to have the right EDID. In short, EDID is the handshake that all video devices need in order to work together. If it's not right, the PiKVM is going to show no signal and you might as well just go insane troubleshooting. When we're done, the computers are going to feed the video into the KVM, then the KVM is going to feed video into the splitter, which is going to split the signal. Then we're going to have one signal here at our monitor so we can have control here at our desk, and the other signal to the PiKVM so we can have remote capture. It's not hard, but you have to train the devices in the right order, so you want to make sure to follow these steps. We're going to start with everything turned off. That's really critical. Then Jaime is going to finish his build, and I'm going to go to the back to give him a hand.
Okay, so you guys want to start off with the splitter. Make sure you have your USB data cable and your power cable. We showed both of them earlier in the video, so take the USB data, connect it to the splitter, take the power, connect that in the right slot as well. All right, once you have both cables connected, take your splitter, plug it into the PiKVM. Should then see lights go on. Once you confirm that, take your Ethernet cable, plug it into the back like so. And then lastly, your HDMI cable, which goes into the input module, the back of the PiKVM, and then you can take it towards the back.
Okay, now that we're in the back here, the first thing we want to do is plug in the USB. The USB cable is the one that he just plugged into the splitter. We're going to plug it into the emulated mouse and keyboard port so we can have hotkey switching. And then we're going to work with the video, which is the tricky part. So we have our splitter here that's turned off and nothing is plugged into it. That's very important. And we're going to want to plug in the HDMI from the Pi into the splitter and turn the splitter on. So now it's receiving the EDID from the Pi. Now that that's trained, we can train the KVM with the same process. We're going to plug from the input of the splitter into the KVM's output over here. And we'll go ahead and turn the KVM on so that chain is now complete and this is now getting the right EDID. Now we can plug in our computers. It doesn't matter which input you use for the computers. So let's go 16 for our desktop here. Let's grab our, I think this is our MacBook Pro. We'll stay in order. We'll plug that into 3. And then we'll grab the Yoga. And then we'll go into 9. It's really important that when you plug in the laptops, that the laptops are turned off. So now that we got those plugged in, you can turn the laptops on.
Okay, so starting with the MacBook Pro, go ahead and turn that on. Then our Lenovo. Make sure to turn that on as well. And then lastly, our desktop computer. All right, so once you can confirm all of the devices are turned on, you can then go ahead and move over to your client setup. We make sure that the PiKVM is actually connected. Then we confirm that. We click on the IP address, we copy it, open a new tab, and then just paste it in the URL. Should be getting the login screen. The username and password for both is admin. So we just type that in, click login. You should be getting the web interface now. We click on KVM, and this allows us to see which devices are actually getting signal. Right now it's showing the MacBook Pro, so we know that's working. We want to switch over to the Lenovo, so we go scroll 9, and we switch over to the port. Make sure that we are getting signal.
And that's it. Now we're set up for remote control. Now the last thing we need to do is set up for our local desk here. And all we need to do is add this monitor. And that's really simple. We're just going to take the HDMI cable that's already plugged in and turned on. We're going to plug it into one of the other outlets, the outputs of our splitter. And from there, we should be having our local monitor.
Yep, so we have picture and we have full control of the mouse. I mean, with this, pretty much the setup is completed. And as you guys can see, the PiKVM is a very functional device, but it has a learning curve. With a splitter and a KVM, we can have control of all the devices here sitting at our desk or anywhere in the world just using a VPN. If you guys want to see that and see us go remote, check out this video.